Well, you need to learn at an early age. Like it doesn't apply to kids if you're family.
If you have your family, you can take advantage of your children to get your horse manure clean.
We have 4 cameras.
Wow, look at that.
And all of them pointed at you.
Uh-oh. The pressure's on.
Yes, the pressure's on. I mean, usually how this is, I'm not an interviewer. So it's basically a guitar player too. I'm not a guitar player.
I like that.
Well, it can mean that the questions can be a little, you know, non-traditional.
That's great. I
applaud
that.
Yes, but also sometimes I might sit and drool while thinking, you know. But
well, it's okay because I sit and drool while talking.
Yes, we can drool together.
Yes, drooling
no,
with
but you're the first guy I'm trying this with, which is, you know, technology iPad.
Okay, cool.
Which, you know, I can have some guidelines.
Great.
But before that, I was just sitting and drooling, basically. So it's been going great so far, but sometimes I just forget to ask. You know, I just, like, after the interview, I'm like, oh, God, you know, I forgot to ask that. So I have, you know, this is good to have.
They're great to have. I need those for remembering my lyrics.
Ooh. Oh, when playing live, too?
Yeah, it's a.
Do you have like a note stand then?
No, I just put it on the. Fortunately, my eyesight distance-wise is still pretty good.
Oh, okay.
So I can generally. It's just like, oh, we're getting to the second verse and.
Okay.
Yeah. What's the first
word?
But
is it rolling like a teleprompter?
No, I have a foot switch thing.
Oh, dude, that's perfect.
Yeah, it's
technology.
Great. You gotta love it.
So you have your own screen, like TV screen.
Yeah, just a little teeny. It's just the biggest iPad that I could find. And
smart.
Well, you know, it's just. I wish I could say after years of doing this that I can hold all of the information in my tiny brain.
No, it's impossible.
It's really.
I wish I could do that with guitar solos. You know, so you remember guitar solos while playing live.
Yeah.
Because that's also like when I'm playing, it's the first time I play the solo.
Right.
When I come up to the solo. So sometimes, I don't know.
Memory is it's a funny thing, man, and it
doesn't get better.
No, it gets worse. Trust me.
Yeah. All right. So I'm going to start the interview because we haven't started yet. This is like, but this will probably be in the video anyways. But it's just like a, you know, warming up.
We're just warming up. We're just,
So I clap. I do a sync clap.
Right.
That's how I sync everything in here, and then we go.
Cool.
What's up, everyone, and welcome to Coffee with Ola today with Myles Kennedy. Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, dude, my pleasure. How are you doing?
I'm great. I feel really good because I flew over across the pond like 3 days ago, and I'm surprisingly lucid and not too jet lagged. Okay. So I feel great. I feel like
Is it like a press run
you're
doing right now for your new album?
Yeah.
The Art of Letting Go.
The Art of Letting Go.
That's a great title, must say.
Thank you.
It sounds insanely heavy in terms of like the theme of the album.
The theme of the record is very, very profound and deep.
What is there a theme behind the album, or?
No, I tried not to have like a congruent theme this time because I did that on the first 2 records. But that song, the title track, was kind of inspired by just kind of where I'm at mentally right now at this stage in life, where I'm really just trying to just learn to kind of roll with the punches.
Right.
I don't want to be reactive anymore. It's very just kind of zen, as Bruce Lee once said.
Be water, my friend.
And I love it. I wish I'd have started living this way a long time ago.
Yeah, I hear you. So I've received the album. I've listened to it. It's released October 10th.
I believe, at least in the States, the 11th. Maybe.
Okay. In Europe, we get 1 day early.
Yeah.
Because we're awesome. Maybe. Awesome. I don't know. No, but I listened to it. I worked out to it, which is a great way of me to listen to an album. Is, you know, and feel if I can. Okay, can I get the pump with this album or not? And it worked.
Okay,
so
good.
Congratulations. Is this your third solo album? But how do you differentiate this with, you know, writing with Alter Bridge, for instance, or the lyrical theme that you give for Slash, for instance? What makes this? How do you write for yourself?
Yeah, it's, you know, I try to. It was tricky with this record because this is more of a rock record.
Yes.
Right? First record.
Very guitar-driven.
Very guitar-driven. And obviously both the other bands I'm in, with Alter Bridge and with Slash and the Conspirators.
Yes.
Guitar-driven.
Yes.
So it was a matter of how to kind of facilitate that. I think that, you know, for me, one of the things to help keep it out of Alter Bridge territory is not to go too heavy.
Yes.
And keep a certain groove, a certain pocket there, kind of a... I don't want to say totally blues based, but utilizing, speaking in terms of like more blues scales, pentatonic scales, as opposed to a lot of like fifth degree of harmonic minor.
Right, right, right.
And there's a little bit of that here and there because I do love, I love using some of that information in composing. But yeah, that was one of the things. As far as the difference, like as far as how I actually wrote it, it's similar. Okay. You live and die by that riff.
Yep.
So I wanted to make sure that was very compelling before building the rest of the song on it.
Right.
So I would sit there with a little spark amp, oftentimes in a hotel room, TV on with the sound off, and just riff out.
Right.
And then just record it on my phone, step away from it, and see if it was still something I wanted to work on a few days later.
Do you immediately feel like, okay, this is an Alter Bridge song, or this is a Myles Kennedy song, or do you feel immediately like, okay, so you can like diversify?
It's pretty easy for them. Occasionally the line will be, kind of blurry, and more so on this where I had to really step back and go, is that going to work possibly in A/B land? But it is just a different, for me, it's just a different mindset because I'm more of a blues-based player.
Yeah.
I mean, the guys I grew up listening to, be it, Eddie Van Halen, Jimmy Page, that's all kind of stems from that. And with Alter Bridge, it's, there's a little bit of that here, here and there, but it's definitely just more of a metal undercurrent that we tend to tap into. Not really heavy, but that detuned and that girth.
Thick, really thick sound and thick production, I must say.
Yeah.
And how involved are you in the production side of things? Or you just go in there and just like, okay, this amplifier and let's go.
Yeah, generally, I trust Elvis's, as both him and Jeff as far as their ability to get sounds.
Yep.
I'm not going to mess with that. But I do know what I don't want. And so that was one of the things I told him on this record, is like, I really want to keep this super simple gear-wise, and we're just going to have a setup that we'll use every day, and not, because on the second solo record, on the Ides of March, I had all this vintage gear that I was trying to, I was using like old Fender Deluxes and, 335.
You felt that you need to bring in all these iconic stuff that you have. Maybe.
Yeah, because that was kind of what informed making that record, and the record before that, what informed it, is what inspired me a lot was these very old Martins and old Gibsons. Okay. But with this, what was informing me was my signature guitar and my Diesel Paul amp. Yeah. And it was pretty, it was very straightforward, and I enjoyed it. Yeah.
Nice. So you have a new signature guitar. Has it been launched now, or is it?
It's been launched. It's been out for over a year, and we spent about 2 years putting it together. Somehow I fooled PRS into giving me a signature guitar. I have no idea how.
Well, you're an incredible player. I mean, you definitely deserve to have a guitar.
Wow,
and I think you inspire a lot of people, both in terms of the vocals, obviously, but also the guitar. When you listed your influences just now, you mentioned guitar players, but what's your vocal influences?
I have a lot, but they're generally not like. They're not like Stevie Wonder is kind of how I learned to sing. Okay. I listened to a lot of Stevie Wonder, and then fast forward years later, Robert Plant through listening to Jimmy Page, trying to learn all the Jimmy Page stuff, but then Robert was singing the song, so that definitely influenced me. But later on, Jeff Buckley was a massive influence. Buckley and Tom York, and then Ella Fitzgerald.
Okay.
I think Ella, for me, Ella is that's the crown jewel. Like, she is, amazing. Yeah.
First time I actually saw you was in Rockstar.
Okay.
That's a long time ago.
That was a long time ago.
I mean, that's a weird, was that the start of your career? Or like, you had bands already, and you were in bands, but did that make anything kick off, or was it just?
I don't know if it kicked off, it was interesting. So I was in a band called the Mayfield Four, and we made 2 records for Epic Records. Yep. And the first record was mixed by Brendan O'Brien.
Oh, okay.
And Brendan, from what I understand, kind of put in a good word. They were looking for that character. They wanted somebody who could play the part but also sing it. Yeah. And so he said, hey, there's this guy who mixed this record for his band a few years ago. You should give him a call. And because I live in Spokane, I don't live in Hollywood, I'm not in the thick of it. And so I'm sitting there in my living room in Spokane, and you know, and I'd heard rumblings about this film being made. I thought, that sounds cool, you know. And then my manager called, and he's like, hey, somebody reached out and wanted to know if you'd be interested in flying to LA and try out for this. And I was like, okay, okay, I'll give it a shot, you know. It was amazing.
Yeah.
It was just like, and what's funny is people go, man, have you ever thought of doing more acting? You know, you were good in that film. I'm like, I wasn't acting. That youthful exuberance, that was just a guy who was like, how the hell am I here? And so all the like, pick me and all that. That was just like authentic. That's how I felt.
Yeah, you felt like a kid, like a fan, you know. And
totally. Yeah. And I was a fan of like getting, you know, there was Zach Wilde and Jason Bonham and Jeff Pilson, and they were so cool. They were so gracious and so cool. I remember, and I think they sensed it. They're like, hey, let's take the kid under a wing. And, and I remember after we got done shooting, Zach was like, hey, why don't you come on my trailer and we'll have a beer together. And,
nice.
And he gave me a whole box of his custom strings, and I still have some of those strings. And
that's cool.
it was amazing.
That's cool. So did you start playing guitar, or did you start singing?
I started playing guitar.
Okay.
I technically started playing trumpet.
Okay.
I was a little band geek. And then I heard Eruption and Whole Lotta Love in the same afternoon.
Oh.
I was probably 13, and I was like, what is that? You know, that's what I want to do. So it took a few years to where I actually, in the 80s there was a thing called air bands.
Yes.
So I would come home from school and I would turn on like the Screaming for Vengeance record in front of the mirror, you know, and do Electric Eye with a tennis racket, you know, and then I put together like these air bands and my friends, and we put on these little shows for you know, our friends in the neighborhood. And I was so excited about this one. At this point, I'm like 14 or so, and my stepdad, we're camping, and he's making the fire, and he hears me just all excited, and he just turns around and kind of disgustedly looks at me and says, why don't you just learn to play for real? I'm like, that is a genius idea.
Oh, that's funny.
So yeah, so then we worked out a deal.
Yeah.
And he was like, okay, so I'll tell you what, because we had a few horses. He goes, I'll give you $1 for every stall you clean. Now, doing the math on that, it takes about almost an hour to clean a stall. So there's some child labor laws there that he probably was crossing the lines with.
Well, you need to learn at an early age. Like it doesn't apply to kids if you're family.
If you're family, you can take advantage of your children to get your horse manure cleaned. So I cleaned stalls for 9 months and saved up money. But to this day, when I think of that guitar I was saving up for, which was an Ibanez DT250, it's like kind of looked like the Dimebag, you know.
ML, yeah, exactly.
To this day, when I think of that guitar, I smell horse manure because there's like, you know, as I'm working, I'm thinking of the guitar and horse manure, but I'm very happy.
So was that your first real guitar, or?
First real guitar.
Oh,
yeah.
So did you learn to shred on that, or like what's the? How fast did it go from actually getting the guitar to, like being remotely a little bit awesome?
Well, I'm still trying to be a little bit. I'm trying. One day I hope to be a little bit awesome. Yeah. But right. I will say that I became freaking obsessed.
Okay.
Like it was bad. I got bit by the bug hard to the point where it was a problem because I was a decent student and I worked really hard at it. I didn't care anymore. All I could daydream about was coming home and what was I going to learn. And there was a thing called the metal method, which was you'd order it in the back of Circus magazine, and so these cassettes would show up, these little booklets, and that was when I was just off to the races. And I remember ordering the Eruption one and trying to learn Eruption, and never could get it right. But the finger tapping part, which this is the part you hear in all the music stores probably to this day, but it was so liberating. It was just empowering. Like that is something. That's why I'm such an advocate for kids getting music instruments if they can, you know, and because it's, man, there's just nothing, there's no high quite like it.
No, it's very rewarding. Well, like guitar playing is insanely tough of an instrument, but it's so rewarding when you get it done, or like when you get to play. I mean, in my opinion, guitar playing, the best part about guitar playing is playing songs. Like your favorite songs, for instance, like when you're learning to play guitar, and you finally get to play along with your favorite songs. That's the most rewarding. It
is. So what was like the first one that you played along with?
So it's very cliche, but the first song I learned was Thunderstruck.
Oh, okay.
And you know, and all that, and Smoke on the Water, and really cliche, but perfect. But my big thing was Pantera, right? So just learning Walk or any song was very empowering.
It's so empowering.
And it's to this day, I think me seeing progression in my guitar playing has been when learning other people's songs. Even to this, like when joining bands, for instance, and learning someone's songs, that's where, you know, progression has really happened.
Right.
Other than, you know, fine sitting and practicing, you know, up and down and, you know, the spider or whatever.
Right.
But it's always...
Oh, the spider. You know the spider?
Yeah. Absolutely.
That's the great one.
Yeah. And, you know, the chromatic scale. I mean, I grew up with John Petrucci on VHS and, you know, sitting there and doing his sweep and his incredibly non-musical, you know, technical exercises. But and those are great, but it's really about playing the music.
It is.
Tell me, how did you form your first band and get into that? Because that's a completely different, you know, way of playing guitar. It's just playing together with other people.
Yeah, it's that communication.
Yes.
You know, and that's when, for me, that's when the fun really started.
Yeah.
So I think the first band was with a few buddies. By that point, I'd been playing not even a year, but it was with my friend Daryl Hopkins and Mark Terzenbach and Ben McDougall, I think. And we had a band called Rapscallion.
Oh, okay, cool.
Good name. I remember combing through the dictionary for like weeks, and I was like, Rapscallion, there you go. And so that lasted for a little while. But what was interesting about that is we did a handful of covers, but we kind of started just writing our own songs. So the songwriting, and I thought that writing was something that wasn't as impressive as learning covers. And I was like, but for now, I look at it in retrospect, I'm glad I started as a writer because for a number of reasons. But I think the first like kind of cover band was a few months later. I got poached from by these, you know, the really great players in my high school, and it was like they were called Celiacs. Meaning, I think it was a word they put together, meaning fast guitars or something like that. And we played this thing called the Drug-Free Rock-Off, and it was a battle of the bands.
Okay.
And we each took turns singing songs. And I think we had 5 songs that night. And the song I sang, and we started the set, was Rock and Roll by Led Zeppelin.
Oh, yeah.
So my first like real gig in front of people with the guitar and singing was this competition. And I was terrified. I had the worst. My stage fright was so bad that the guys from the other bands were coming over like, "Are you okay?" Like, I still remember that whole thing and just kind of the empathy. They were older. They were like a little more. You know, they'd been playing for a while. And I was a very underdeveloped. Like I was like, I didn't hit puberty till I was like 25 or something. So I was just like this. And, who's that little kid? And why is he freaking out? But it ended up being a lot of fun. So. That was the beginning. Oh,
that's cool. So I want to go back to the gear you're using. You said what type of amplifiers are you using for this new album, for instance?
It's just a Diesel Paul.
Okay.
The whole record is a Diesel Paul.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I love that amp.
Okay.
They turned me on to that. You know, I've been using Diesel stuff now for nearly 20 years. I discovered the Herbert while we made the Blackbird record, and it was it's just challenging to find a sound that was going to sit with Mark's sound because he uses a lot of real estate. And so the Herbert was like, once we plugged that in, Elvis, you know, our producer, and it just was sold from that point forward. And then, you know, I got to know the guys at Diesel and Peter Stauffer. He's like, you should try this Paul out with your solo stuff. I think you'd really like it.
Right.
And he was correct.
Yeah. So I read a story somewhere that when you joined or when you played with started with Alter Bridge, that you didn't necessarily show off your guitar playing at all. You were there for the singing, and that you were sitting noodling in your hotel room or something like that, and just Mark came by and heard just what he thought was a CD of some jazz riffs or, you know, some jazz playing. And tell us a little bit about that. What happened?
Yeah, I didn't want to come in and rock the boat. They had established something as what they were, and I was like, they called me up, wanted me to sing, so I'm going to sing. You know, I'm not going to come in and like, hey, I can play guitar. You know, I think Mark's got that handled. And so it was like. I would just, but on days off, and I stayed at Mark's house a lot back in the day when we'd write records. So I was staying in the room, there's the spare room there, when I had nothing to do, I'd just turn on like jam tracks or whatever and just improvise for hours, you know, just have fun. And that's what happened. He was like, what's going, he heard that and then didn't realize that I guess that I was just loved the guitar. So that from that point forward, that kind of changed the dynamic where it was like, oh, you should be playing guitar. And that's when, I think that's what helped kind of, to some degree, you know, that's where Blackbird ended up coming from, was just the twin guitar thing and the interplay there. And I'm grateful for that because at the end of the day, I've said it many times, it's just like, I always kind of consider myself a guitar player first. It's where I start. I still love it. I love singing. I don't want to marginalize that or minimize that, but there's just something, as we all know as guitar players, there's nothing like it. It's just
there's nothing like the riff.
Nothing like I had a tech, my old tech, Ian Keith. He had something when he'd send emails, and at the bottom, I forget who said it. It was a quote, and it said, "The power of the riff compels me." And I was like, yeah, exactly.
Very cool. So you're on your press tour right now, but you're also doing a tour later this year. Devin Townsend opening up
in certain part, like I believe in the UK.
Yeah, okay.
And I'm over the moon about getting to tour with him.
Yeah. That's gonna be fun.
Man, that guy's brilliant. he's so nice, and yeah. So I'm pinching myself that we get to tour together.
Right. So what other plans do you have for the coming 2 years? Is there, what's in the Alter Bridge camp right now, for instance? Right
now, we're just trying to figure out when we'll have a clear path, because they're doing the Creed reunion and they're crushing it. So I think they should ride that out as long as possible.
Absolutely.
But that's been great for me because it now allows me to put this record out and have a long runway. Part of the issue with the first two solo records, really the first one, there was so much going on with my schedule with Alter Bridge and with Slash. There was just only a finite amount of time to promote it. And then obviously with Ides of March, it came out when the world shut down, and that was a crazy time. So this is the first time where I'm really going to have
full album cycle,
and I'm really excited for that to come together.
Yeah, you mentioned Slash, and I forgot to ask about that. But how did that all come along that you started singing for Slash?
Yeah, well, that's an interesting one. So, in 2002, when they were working on what would become Velvet Revolver, somebody must have heard about me, and so Slash reached out and said, "Hey, would you be interested in auditioning for this thing we're doing?" And I was like, absolutely. Long story short, I put a few vocals to some demos, and I never sent them back because I was in an interesting place at that point. Mayfield Ford we kind of finished our record deal with Epic, and I was just a little bit, I don't know, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I think I kind of lost a little bit of my mojo. I kind of blamed that for some reason. As the principal songwriter and the singer, you start to the voices in my head are like, oh, maybe
like imposter syndrome, or
a little bit of that, and a little bit of just do I have what it takes? Just all that silly nonsense. And so the magnitude of that, of them reaching out, I was flattered, but I was like, I just don't know if that's something I could pull off, and I didn't want to throw my hat in the ring if I didn't feel like I could it would be, I just didn't want to waste anybody's time. So that didn't happen, and I respectfully just said, I'm honored, but I'm not going to send this back. Fast forward 7 years later, and he was doing his first solo record. And I think some of what happened, at least what he says, it was right after I had the opportunity to jam with Jimmy Page and John Paul Jones and Jason Bonham, and so I guess my name had kind of been, making the rounds, and he was doing the solo record, and the first solo record, and he's like, hey, would you be interested in doing a track? I was like, yeah, absolutely. So he sent the music bed. It's hard to believe that's exactly, I think maybe to the day, 15 years ago, which is crazy. And so he sent this really cool music bed for what would become Starlight. So I wrote a melody and a lyric and sent it back to him later that weekend. And then it was supposed to, it was just gonna be one song, and then it was two songs. And then he was like, hey, so I was thinking, next summer, why don't we just tour this for like, just do the festivals. And I was like, great. and then we're in the middle of festivals, and that was going so well. And he's like, so I was thinking, that's always how you know it.
Yes.
So I was thinking, why don't we, let's do a full record together. And it's like, great. It just kept happening. And now 15 years later, it's just been great. I don't know how you were sitting next to the luckiest dude. Like, because the door, every time I think the door was shutting and it was ending, like
right.
this is a tough business,
yes,
and somehow the door just kind of kept open, and I'd kind of push it. Is anybody still there? Yeah, open it up, come on in. So, yeah, it's been great.
That's cool. So before we end off, what do you do on your day off? what do you have any other interests or hobbies or anything that
I'm trying to become a little more well-rounded, but as any real guitar nerd will say, we're all still kind of obsessed.
That's cool.
I'll usually on a day off, I'll try and do something healthy and exercise or whatever, find something to eat, and then it's take the amp, plug the guitar in.
Well, that's good to hear. Like, that's what people want to hear.
Okay.
I mean, that's
okay,
a good thing. Like when I say it's like, okay, at the end of the workday, I just don't want to see a guitar again.
Right.
Or go play video games. But that's what people want to hear, and that makes me inspired as well.
Oh, good.
To hear that there's
I thought it was gonna be like, everybody says that. We want to hear about strip clubs. And
right, exactly. No, but in my profession, which is the YouTube, working with guitar and social media every day, I need to grab inspiration from everywhere,
right?
Just to keep the light on and the fire going. So that's a great answer. I
okay, good.
That. So your album, The Art of Letting Go, October 10 or 11 this year. Amazing album. You should check it out. And I'll try to catch a show in Stockholm 1st of November.
That would be great.
Absolute pleasure. So, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Myles Kennedy, anyone? Oh, shit.